So, Annihilator. Everyone's favorite Irish demolitions/explosives expert. This man has been the subject of a lot of jokes and iconic memes being made about him in the TC2 community, ever since his voice lines were replaced by unit classified, such as his Century Ahead command being turned into that one "Take Out That MG" song most TC2 players are now familiar with. One of his domination lines towards arsonists being cut off too.
I'm a toaster.
And my own personal favorite being towards arsonist.
Fry, you damn Fruit Loop!
But sadly, as with every class in this game, even his meme status doesn't protect him from stereotypes, and especially in this game, he does get a lot of crap towards him somewhat often, due to how some of his weapons work. Like how some people get mad for sticky spam ever since the shields for Annihilator got nerfed, and even that subclass was getting crap for being a brainless class that took no skill to get free crits for no effort. And according to some people, pipe spam, even though it's one of his main weapons, so I can't wrap my head around it. So there really isn't any form of respect for Annihilator in most people's eyes until they encounter one that can aim pipes well, and even then, they will get mad over pipe spam apparently. But either way, there are a lot of big stereotypes for Annihilator weapons in general, so this should be interesting. But as always, if your favorite weapon for Annihilator gets a negative stereotype, don't take it seriously at all. It's all for the sake of jokes and comedy, alright? Alright, let's get into this. Well, I mean, what can I say about this weapon? It's really good. This weapon is pretty much used by everyone who plays Annihilator, and sure, some other people might prefer other launchers other than stock, but all of them have used this launcher before at some point during their career. As with every stock weapon, there's either the clueless new player who just started the game with this being their only unlock, or the guy who knows this is the best Annihilator primary for almost any situation possible. But with all of Annihilator's weapons, you can always see a very wide skill range with the players using this weapon. It's either the guy who can't aim pipes who gets killed easily, or blows himself up often when he does get a kill, which is super common to see when that one flanker or agent pops up in his face, which gets them both killed, or even them blowing themselves up when they try to shoot it and the grenades they shot get under their feet and blows them up. Also, the one guy who can somewhat aim pipes and has some experience with Annihilator, but isn't perfect at it. While still being pretty deadly, he's not too much of a threat as long as you can surprise attack them or know how to air blast correctly. And then we have that one Annihilator who you might see once or twice in your entire career who is an absolute god who can aim pipes left and right, just destroying everyone who is on the opposite team. And being a menace to the entire server, especially towards mechanic mains. Though in-game, you never really know how good someone is when they have this weapon equipped, so just watch them to see what their skill level is. Or they want to complete the explosive personality or grenader achievements as well. Well, these guys hate mechanics with a passion, like if the grenade launcher wasn't already dangerous enough to mechanics buildings themselves. And this launcher is just making it super obvious. Though I can see why some people use it so often. Mainly because of low-level teammates constantly running into sentry guns mindlessly, and sometimes those mechanics tanking it or placing it in the most random spots as well, just to catch people off guard. Or it's that one mechanic trying to ninja-near, and when that mechanic manages to spawn camp a team and start getting kills, there's that one person who wants to play and win games instead of dealing with that mechanic's bullcrap. Anyways, you would think that someone using the Iron Force would be good at aiming his pipes because of them losing one pipe for 50% more damage towards buildings, and mini-critting people launched from explosions, right? Well, no. These guys will try to use it normally like stock, even though this weapon is mainly focused on destroying sentry guns and mechanics buildings more than being an offensive tool in most situations, because of its blast radius being 50% smaller and having one less pipe. Though some people use it as a combo weapon against troopers and annihilators, who like blast jumping a lot in most cases. Also mentioning, they hate accidentally blowing themselves up from random pipe rollers they forgot about that hadn't blown up that were right next to them. Or they want to complete the Iron Sights achievement, in which they need to kill 5 blast jumping troopers with this weapon. But two interesting things about this weapon is that you can blast jump with this weapon like how Trooper can with his rocket launcher, because the pipes explode when they hit a surface instead of tumbling normally. Though it's not as good as Troopers since Annihilators have less health and the amount of health it takes for you to blast jump. But the damage can be reduced slightly if you put the charge and targe on, and the self-damage radius is slightly smaller compared to stock. so you might not blow yourself up as easily if people get into your face. These guys are either clueless or they came from TF2 thinking it has the faster projectile speed, or probably think they are good enough to be using this weapon for those mini crits and increased building damage even though every single one of them are mediocre at best. Or they hate the meme classes like Trollger and the Caber meme strap for Annihilator, or anyone who's blast jumping or in the air. That's it really. These boots are always used on Annihilator Knights, so expect almost everyone who uses this to be an Annihilator Knight, though there are some cases of that not being true. Such as the clueless new player seeing these boots giving you 25% more health and 10% more movement speed. And once they equip it, they won't realize it took away their grenade launcher and only being stuck to their sticky bomb launcher, until they get killed by that one agent or flanker. Or these guys are intentionally equipping the boots with the sticky bomb launcher to either set a bunch of sticky traps on control points and the payload, and they want more mobility and health to do that, or to go sticky spam entire teams, or they're doing a discount shoulder loadout with the sticky jumper and the shock and all, or with any melee weapon of their choice since the parachute isn't as good as its older version, and they prefer having more health and movement speed. Stock, but worse. Why would you even want to use this weapon to begin with? This is basically almost a direct downgrade to stock in almost every way possible, though there are some interesting things you can do with this weapon. Since these launchers' pipes don't bounce or roll, you can use your pipes to act like the sticky bomb launcher if you shoot them at the floor. So if you're getting chased and can't aim pipes directly at the person you're shooting at, place a few of these grenades at the floor to set up a temporary trap like a sticky bomb, which can be useful at times. Place them in hallways and around corners, though you want to shoot them a few seconds before the person chasing you reaches the spot where you put the pipe for it to work properly. And you can use this as a mobility tool since its pipes don't roll or bounce. Though it's not as smooth as rocket jumping though, so keep that in mind. These guys will try to use this normally like stock, though they're at a serious disadvantage using this, since direct hits don't have splash damage, so that means you can't take out sentry nests and people grouping together, which the stock launcher shines at doing, which Annihilator thrives off of to be an effective class. They think since this has the stat, direct hits have no splash damage, they think they're pretty much immune to splash damage if someone gets near them. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this doesn't prevent you from taking self-damage from your grenades if you get close to someone, so you might as well just use stock. I mean, some people use this since they want more control over pipes, or they hate whenever they accidentally blow themselves up from the one pipe they shot that got under their feet. They normally try to go on their own, but they usually end up dying from them blowing themselves up whenever that one person gets in their face, or getting killed whenever a large group of enemies show up and they only manage to kill one of them out of the entire group. They are usually more mediocre than most Annihilators in general, since the lack of splash damage. I mean, they probably appreciate that they have more control over their pipes, but they usually focus on people who are alone, then go after huge crowds. And they usually go by themselves rather than sticking with their teammates, which is pretty strange on its own. I mean, I can probably see why Rolv added the no splash damage stat to this weapon, because this launcher would have probably become meta, and nobody would use stock or any other launcher if they removed the no splash damage stat, so that's probably why. I mean, there's the small chance these guys either came from TF2 expecting it to work the same until they read its stats after dying, or they're too stubborn to use stock. That's it really. Lemonade, but for Annihilator. Alright, I need to address the elephant in the room about this weapon. This is clearly the best weapon for Annihilator for obvious reasons, and I don't want to hear anything about this being one of the worst launchers for Annihilator in most situations. Alright? Okay, but seriously. This weapon has some serious potential, but its stats and how it works in game is very limiting to say the least. But nobody uses this because its stats make it terrible in general play, and how an Annihilator is supposed to play in general. So this weapon is pretty bad unless you're a masochist. You're probably only trying to do the Lemonade Launcher achievement, then once you get it, you'll never use this weapon again. I mean, since this weapon has a 35% damage reduction and no splash damage, you're basically screwed in normal combat. including the fact you can coat yourself as well if someone gets too close to you as well. There's just nothing good happening for this weapon unless Raw reworks this or something. But anyways, as mentioned before, you're either probably only trying to get the Lemonade Launcher achievement, some clueless player using this weapon thinking this is the best launcher because of it applying lemonade and giving them mini crits, maybe a memer who wanted to see how bad this launcher really was since nobody even bothers to consider this weapon in their Annihilator loadouts. I guess there's the possibility of someone wanting to support their team with free mini crits, but that's just asking too much from this game, unless you're in a comp team, because a public match in TC2 is about as coordinated as a drunk person. I mean, there's also someone wanting to use this as a combo weapon and pairing it with the shock and awe, since 65 plus 121 equals 186 damage, though aiming just 2 pipes is much more efficient than this combo playstyle. I mean, these guys are still total bros, but their efforts are going to be unnoticed 99% of the time, since there's typically no team coordination in a public match, and besides, most Annihilators can't aim pipes to begin with, so that's not helping the situation at all. If you see someone using this weapon that isn't clueless, just please, at the very least, help them, since they're giving up their firepower for a more supportive playstyle. Man treads, but for Annihilator. Well, nobody uses this to begin with for starters. I mean, there's probably only a few reasons why someone might be using this. Maybe they don't like how the Parabomber was changed because you can't keep your speed when you sticky jump, so they use this instead. Or they're playing Annihilator Knight, and they're only equipping this since there's a competent arsonist who can airblast correctly. So if any arsonists are watching this, and you see someone use this on Annihilator Knight when you airblast them off the map a few times, just know you forced them to use this, which means you probably did a good job at being an arsonist in general. Those guys are pretty committed to Annihilator Knight if they're gonna use this. Or I guess they're still doing the shock and awe meme class, but don't want to get screwed over by the knockback penalty that the shock and awe has, which can get you killed pretty often. I guess you could add the clueless new players as well, but that's just rare. There's nothing else really. This weapon is equipped for many different reasons, so let me break it down. You've got the guy who pairs this with the sticky bomb launcher to go high up in the air with the parabomber to basically be a discount carpet bomber. Even though you could just play trooper and use the aerial bomber, that also works. Secondly, you've got the guy who uses this with the sticky jumper and shock and awe to go around and start blowing people up, even though that subclass was also nerfed. So they are also free dominations to farm off of if you set up a level 3 sentry gun or play marksman, even though they both share the same ingenious plan of tossing themselves into the enemy team, who always knows where they are. This isn't getting them frags or anything like that, and they're more like a mosquito that constantly annoys people at most. Also, use any weapons that give knockback to push them into environmental kills, to watch them slowly fall using this to stall their certain death, or build sentry guns to make easy work of them. Maybe there's the clueless new player who tries to use this for its intended purpose, even though that's just rare and any person will know they will lose their main weapon for a useless parachute. These guys might know they're turning themselves into free food, but who knows? I mean, some people pair this with the quickie bomb launcher to carpet bomb people to lose slightly less health than using stock. Overall, this isn't good for almost every situation possible, unless you're trying to do those 3 playstyles I mentioned. It also shares some of the same stereotypes as Trooper does, or they're doing that Demo Bird or Annihilator Bird meme class, with them usually equipping the shock and awe, this parachute, and the tide turner to have full air control. They are often just seen cluelessly flying around the map, just waiting to bomb some random person they find not paying attention. Just look up in the sky, and you'll thank me later. There are a lot of stereotypes for this weapon, so let me explain. Firstly, you've got the guy who's going for a pirate-themed loadout. You know which one I'm talking about. Them equipping the loose cannon, the tide turner, and the pirate cutlass with a lad's lid hat. They probably have pirate music, or 1700s pirate shanties playing in the background as well, just to get that pirate feeling while using this loadout. Secondly, you have those guys who are too lazy to put in the effort to actually learn and play Annihilator effectively, so they use this somewhat as a crutch since the projectile is bigger and easier to aim, and double dunks are stupidly easy to get with only 10 minutes of experience, even though they're pretty satisfying to experience, even though they know this is probably one of the worst launchers for Annihilator combat-wise. Also mentioning, these guys might be using this weapon on purpose just to annoy the rest of the server, since this weapon's knockback can be absolutely terrifying to play against, such as cliffs or buzzsaws. including the fact this weapon is pretty spammable, so that isn't helping at all. I'm pretty sure some of them actually enjoy making people suffer with this weapon's massive knockback, and the chances of doing double donks as well, but who knows. Or they're trying to achieve the Donk City achievement. Most of them play somewhat aggressive, though they play somewhere at mid-range. But some of these guys are very aggressive with this weapon. They really aren't that dangerous if you just don't get near them. So just surprise attack them and they should be pretty easy kills to farm dominations off of. Or just play marksman. Something strange about them is if you get close enough to them, just barely touching them, there's a 60% chance of getting double donked randomly by them if they notice you, and get close to them either killing you and them somehow not taking damage, or you getting double donked but they blow themselves up as well, which is pretty funny. But just pray they don't notice you so you don't get blown up. Sometimes clueless new players try to use this but blow themselves up in spawn or in the middle of a fight when they don't realize this weapon has a charging mechanic. Or some of them are using this as a mobility tool, since you can do consistent blast jumps similar with the Wrecker's Yard without needing a wall or touching the ground, and cover large distances in the same manner, though it's not as easy to do. They sometimes pair it with the shield and the shotgun all to do trimping or to get around the map fast. These guys can pop out of nowhere, being super fast, so just be careful and watch out for them. Or these guys are using this weapon with the sticky jumper to terrorize marksmen who are hiding far away, or go mess with the other team double donking whoever they see. Or it's the guys who use the old loose cannon, the one with the increased projectile speed, and basically get free double donks for no effort, but they will still use this weapon because they are far too used to that stat and are too stubborn to learn and use stock or any other launcher. That's it really.
I mean, while this isn't used as much, there's still some reasons why someone might have used this. Well, you have the person trying to spawn camp the other team with the sticky bomb launcher, so they use this to get past the other team to their spawn successfully, being pretty annoying if they manage to get past or get caught when they're jumping, so they're easy pickings. But sentry guns can usually shut them down, but they might be a little too fast for it to lock on. Maybe they want only sticky spam, but don't like having to walk all the way to the fight, so they use this instead. They somewhat often use the quickie bomb launcher because of the reduced damage from the blast, jumps. There really isn't anything else for this other than the things I've just mentioned.
The double trouble, but for Annihilator. This is a strange weapon to use, but anyways, you'll mainly see this weapon on clueless new players who thought this weapon was good, though the weapon can have other purposes such as targeting marksmen, flankers, and maybe agents, since this weapon can do 130 damage if both pipes hit. These guys prefer burst damage rather than spamming pipes down a choke point with stock. Maybe they like the slower projectile speed so they can aim pipes better. I mean, this thing is pretty fine at clearing out giant crowds of people together since this has an extra pipe and its blast radius is 10% bigger. So shoot this when people are on the ground, up near a dispenser, or at a choke point. This isn't as good as destroying sentry guns or in a 1v1 situation, so keep that in mind. Players tend to use shields, mainly the tide turner or sticky jumper for mobility. I don't know why, it feels fun and fast. Players using this weapon tend to die to their own pipe sometimes if you're shooting up close and personal at targets such as dispensers and players due to the damage, which adds up to around 130 with both pipes. Oh, and also there's a small chance you're a Doom fan if you think the Celtic cluster looks like the super shotgun.
You may be wondering why these two are paired together. But I'm adding a sin for each weapon, with the Iron Force being a discount direct hit but for Annihilator, and the Iron Bomber is the sticky bomb launcher but in primary form. Just 2 quick sins being added. Well, this is another stock weapon, so you can't pin a certain stereotype on this weapon as well, other than it being the clueless new player who just started the game for the first time, or the experienced Annihilator who knows this is the most consistent secondary weapon available for the slot. But that's not all the stereotypes available for this, so hang on. You've got the person who will use this because they either don't like using any shields, so they prefer using this as a reliable backup weapon if they can't reload their grenade launcher in a bad situation. Maybe they're only using this thing religiously since the people who relied on the shields got their guaranteed crits removed, and they have to use this now, otherwise they'll just suck an Annihilator. But they usually forget that they have this instead, when they're in combat, and end up dying easily to be free funds. And I'm pretty sure they already know they suck now, without their guaranteed crits, because if the shields didn't get nerfed, they'd still be using the shields, wouldn't they? Besides, those guys can barely even aim pipes. Now you have sticky spam. Yup. The one thing everyone hates about this weapon, since it's pretty much guaranteed death once you get stun locked in sticky spam, especially if you're near them, even though most of the attempts of sticky spam have a 10% chance of actually being successful and killing a lot of people, while the rest of the 90% is just them dying easily. But there's multiple situations why someone might be doing sticky spam, so let me explain. So you've got the guy who's doing sticky spam to make everyone on the server mad, person who does it when someone gets up in his face and knows he can't aim pipes and does this, and hopes the stickies will kill whoever is in his face that will either blow himself up on accident, somehow manage to kill you and get away with it, or you both get blown up. Or on the rare occasion he has crits on him and knows crit stickies are absolutely devastating. Also mentioning he might be placing sticky traps as well. Or they're trying to spawn camp the enemy team if they get past your team and get to your spawn area, just to spam stickies and spawn camp. Maybe they are using the gunboats to get around faster to spam stickies instead of their pipes. Or using the squire boots to have 25% extra health while spamming and to be slightly faster than usual. But they are also free funds to farm off of as well. This sticky bomb launcher is the most common to see in general play as well. Oh, and they also use it when there's an arsonist who can air blast pipes correctly. So they just spam this at them to hopefully kill them without worrying about another arsonist reflecting their launcher pipes, since stickies are almost impossible to air blast away. Nothing else really. These guys don't like taking damage of any kind and are very self-conscious about taking damage, so they use this. I mean, why else would they be using this? I mean, if you're trying to play Annihilator and there's an arsonist who is able to air blast, then I guess it's understandable. But anyways, this shield has the biggest amount of resistance compared to every other shield in the game, so they prefer being more tanky to most forms of damage, such as 50% more resistance to fire, and a 30% resistance to explosions, so they aren't as easily killed. Most of them tend to be full-on Annihilator Knights, since this is a shield obviously, or hybrid knights who use this but mainly use their grenade launcher, and have some level of experience playing Annihilator Knight. But depending on who you look at, it's a wide variety in game. These guys either hate arsonists just existing, with them only equipping this when they see any kind of arsonist who is either competent or not. Maybe they don't want to blow themselves up as easily since self-damage from your own pipes is reduced when you have this shield equipped. So these guys might be only equipping this to make sure they don't blow themselves up from their own pipes if someone gets right up in their face. They usually play more aggressively because of them having a lot more resistance compared to the other shields, or without it. But they usually run away as soon as they take more than 20 damage, usually to the nearest health kit. But surprisingly enough, about 85% of them usually can't aim pipes, so this makes them pretty annoying to fight against. They're like your 5th grade bully. Yeah, they'll push you around and shove you around whenever they get the chance, especially if you're playing mechanic. But as soon as a competent marksman, agent, flanker, or even an arsonist shows up, they'll be very easy to kill, and will always run away if they see one. But if you surprise attack them, you should put them down easily. Well, these guys are definitely still Annihilator Knights, and even Hybrid Knights, even after almost every shield got nerfed. These guys are either Annihilator Knights, who most commonly use the Black Death, Katana, or the Battle Axe, or even the Spartan Savior, but there are some exceptions with other weapons being used, but those are rare to see. Then you have the Hybrid Knights, who use this instead of their sticky bombs, because they prefer playing more aggressively, compared to stock Annihilators. They tend to overuse the charge a lot, charging into groups of the enemy team, either to get someone who wasn't paying attention, then just charge out, or just die once everyone sees them, before the charge even starts. Some people use this as a mobility tool, since this shield has the fastest recharge rate compared to the other shields, which is 25%. So these guys can be seen charging everywhere on the map pretty often. Or these guys know that this is the best shield for more aggressive playstyles, and they want more mobility, but don't want to be slowed down because of the sticky bomb launcher, but still want to be able to defend themselves up close if someone gets near them. And since this shield recharges 25% faster, and it has a 70% increase in damage if they run into someone with this, so they know they won't lose too much of their melee damage capabilities if they manage to time their charges correctly, and maybe pair it with the battle axe. Strangely enough, more lower level players who attempt to learn or do Hybrid Knight or Pure Annihilator Knight usually use this shield to learn it, since this shield is much more forgiving in charges than compared to the other shields. Or they're trying to do the Thrash and Bastion achievement, since this shield's bash has the highest damage compared to all the other shields. Nothing else really. Surprisingly, this is probably one of the least used sticky bomb launchers in-game for Annihilator, oddly, even though most people do sticky spam with stock and the Irish Guard, though it's probably because this weapon has a 50% less clip size and a 15% damage penalty. But moving on, they only use it purely for sticky spam when they see a bunch of people grouped up together, or if an agent, flanker, or anyone is directly in their face and they need sticky spam to save themselves. These guys tend to be more aggressive than their stock and Irish Guard counterparts, though it usually gets them killed 95% of the time. Sometimes they pair this with the Gunboats to do the shock and awe meme strat, but still want to have their sticky bomb launcher as a backup weapon. Also mentioning, these stickies arm 0.2 seconds faster, and blast jumping with this weapon has a 15% reduction in blast jumping damage, so it's probably the best sticky bomb launcher to use for that strategy. Sometimes they use this instead of the stock sticky bomb launcher because they want to have some more mobility compared to the average stock Annihilator, but still want to have a sticky bomb launcher on hand in case they need it. Maybe they like how this weapon has a faster charge rate and just want to sticky snipe people from far away to get valuable picks, terrorize any mechanics trying to set up, or just punish anyone unlucky enough to run into them by accident. I've seen some people mention that this could be a direct upgrade to the stock sticky bomb launcher if you take the time to master it, but that's up for debate, nothing else really. Well, this is probably the one shield in the entire game that nobody would even bother to use, or consider using in normal play seriously. But there are still stereotypes for the shield, so let me go over them. First, you've got the guy who just completely hates flankers harassing him, or even them existing for this matter, and they use this to have slightly better odds of managing to kill them, since aiming pipes at flankers constantly running and jumping around you is pretty hard, unless you've got them funneled down a choke point or a hallway. They're either hybrid or full-on Annihilator Knights. Maybe they hate marksmen as well, since this shield has a 15% bullet resistance, and Annihilators are usually free food to marksmen if they don't pay attention to sightlines, and they want to have at least a chance every time they need to move out of cover and move up. Also mentioning, they are using this shield because of them having a hard time dealing with sentry guns and brutes constantly shooting at them, while they're trying to blow them up, or even both of them, and die constantly. So they equip this to have at least some better resistance against those two, having slightly better odds to get rid of them. I mean, some people pair this with the Furious Flag Axe to basically double their cap speed, while still having about 5% bullet resistance left to help cap points faster if needed. Without having too many downsides, reading the stats of this shield on paper makes it sound amazing because most of the damage you take is from bullets, obviously, though you leave out Annihilator's main counter. So this shield changes nothing in a 1v1 battle with an arsonist, unless they don't have ammo for their flamethrower, which is almost impossible to see. Also mentioning the other classes who have access to fire, explosives, arrows like the crossbow and the huntsman arrows, and melee weapons that go right past this shield's resistances. So this isn't that good in practice if you have to melee fight them. Also mentioning, this shield's bash does somewhat decent damage and only 3 seconds of bleeding, so it's not that good in direct combat, but only tanking hits from sentries and other classes who mainly use bullets. Some of the clueless players who equip this think they're basically the tankiest class in the game, until that one brute just punches them in the face, basically just crushing their thoughts about this being good. and just throwing it away to never use it again. You could say that they also hate agents as well, with the bleeding stat this shield has, but 3 seconds of bleeding won't even deal more than 20 health, unless your team is actually paying attention to the bleeding effect, which makes up about 5% of the entire game community. This shield more or less just exists, to say the least, but nobody ever really mentions it or uses it at all, so it's basically a ghost compared to the other shields. It's a decent choice for a shield if you want to go Hybrid Knight, but just don't overextend if you want to stay alive. Only 3 people in existence probably use this shield at all. Not much else to talk about. Well, these guys are still definitely Hybrid Knights, to say the least. It's kind of rare to see them as Annihilator Knights, but moving on. You mainly see this on Hybrid Knights because they want to have full turn control instead of charging in a straight line, so they can go around corners, since if they use any other shield, they don't want to accidentally ram themselves into a wall while charging to escape a bad situation, and getting themselves killed. Compared to the other shields, this is probably one of the weakest choices for direct combat, since it has the weakest resistances, and if you take damage while charging, the charge meter will be reduced. Most of the time, it's used more as a mobility tool instead of being an offensive tool, like the Gladiator shield. It's one of the most commonly seen shields used in shrimping rollouts to go flying across the map at really fast speeds, high in the air. But to summarize trimping, for anyone who doesn't know, trimping is a tactic where you charge on a slope and ledge, like this window on Harvest, to gain lots of height and speed. They're terrifying to play against, since they can basically put themselves anywhere on the map at any time, and can absolutely pop out of nowhere at random, where you least expect it, especially if they're super experienced in trimping. Once they land near you, you're pretty much dead, especially if you weren't paying attention, since you didn't react fast enough to see the random Irish guy flying across the sky just for him to slice your head off unexpectedly, then just run off to find another victim. If marksman mains had natural enemies, then these guys would be a nightmare to them. Then you have the guy who's trying to be a discount solar light, doing all the same flashy stuff as that guy does. They usually have some level of experience with trimping, but they haven't exactly mastered it. I mean, 90% of the time, they just go after marksmen who have tunnel vision, and think they're good enough until that one competent flanker shuts them down. Then you have the guy who tries to use this on normal Annihilator Knight, but without trimping. They aren't too deadly as long as you spot them first and constantly keep shooting them, especially if you're a brute with your gun fully revved up. Also, it's pretty rare to see, but someone might be using this with the Spartan Savior to get almost free charge at any time, so expect them to have their charge always ready if they're pairing it with this shield as well. These guys who have this shield on a Hybrid Knight loadout have a 50% chance of being competent or mediocre, so keep that in mind. You would think this weapon would be considered a meme weapon because of people doing the shock and awe meme playstyle and some other possible meme strats, but that's actually not true once you look at this weapon a lot more. Some people consider this a utility item in this case, but anyways, it can either be used for serious or non-serious playstyles, depending on who you look at. There's quite a few, so let me break it down. First, you have the guy who uses this as a mobility tool to get around faster, and or use this for a roamer playstyle, who can either be super deadly or easy to kill, since they can't aim pipes. But if they can't aim pipes, well, just be sure to pay attention. They can pop out of nowhere and can kill you easily if you're not paying attention. Someone trying to learn how to sticky jump, either just to get the basics down, or do more complex tricks, such as sticky jumper sinks. Someone either doing the shock and awe meme strat, just going around blowing people up, or they're doing the same strategy, though they actually try to take advantage of those mini crits, usually pairing it with the shock and awe, this weapon, and whatever grenade launcher they choose. Or they use it as a tool to escape bad situations that they can't handle, and they're confident enough in their pipe aim to do that. Maybe it's the clueless new player who thought this was a stock reskin, even though that is extremely rare to see. Though there are some chances that they die when they try to use this to get away, who either get killed before they can actually jump away, they get shot midair causing them to die from fall damage, they die from fall damage without them realizing they had such little health, or they're desperate to escape from a bad situation and die regardless. Sometimes they use this to get behind the enemy team to blow up the enemy mechanics buildings, mainly sentry guns, who give their team a hard time to get past though they're usually successful about 70% of the time, though unless the enemy team can stop them mid-air or kill them before they start spamming pipes at their sentry, or if anyone knows the old tactics of some people who use this to escape spawn during setup time. to either get an unfair advantage, be friendly, or be easy food to farm points off of since they can't aim pipes 95% of the time. Those guys are terrible people to fight against, but thankfully Rolf put up a kill barrier if you attempt to escape spawn during setup time. And finally, these guys want to learn how to aim pipes, so they equip this to jump directly into the enemy team to gain more direct experience, instead of being in the middle of a fight. Or they're intentionally using this to terrorize the marksman who's either killing their team or just want to mess around with them in general. That's everything really. Well, you would think since this weapon promotes more of a defensive playstyle, the people who would use this would be good at setting traps, and playing more defensively, and being able to bait people into traps.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Well, the stereotypes for this weapon is interesting to say the least. You'd expect these people to be playing more defensively, setting up sticky traps instead of being aggressive with this weapon, but you'd be completely wrong most of the time. For some strange reason, the people who use this weapon are usually aggressive with this weapon, most commonly doing sticky spam on both offense and defense, near control points, the payload, and whenever they can't reload their grenade launcher, and still want to put out more damage. Someone jumped in their face, and so they use this to spam more stickies faster, but the longer arm time either screws them over or helps them depending on the situation, or they blow themselves up. If you listen carefully, you can hear the frustrated constant clicks of them trying to get kills with this, either to feel good or to make people think they're good, from that 10 kill streak they got from spamming it on a control point. They usually try to spam it at groups who are bunched together, but most smart players usually manage to avoid them once they see or start hearing them place those stickies down. So just go a different route instead of going into their sticky spam and just surprise attack them, to kill them easily, since most of them can't even aim pipes to begin with, and probably only saw someone else do the same kind of sticky spam and wiped out an entire team, and they thought they could do the same, but don't get the same results. Or they're the people who try to actually use it defensively, but there's a lot of reasons why they might usually give up on this weapon, or they aren't good with this weapon most of the time, such as placing all their stickies in one obvious or bad spot, instead of spreading them out all over the map to have multiple spots, to blow people up. 4 stickies per trap is enough to kill most classes with overheal. They usually place too many stickies all over the place so they can't keep track of all of them, allowing people to get past them or destroy them without them knowing, which ends up with them getting surprise attacked and dying in the end. Or they place it in bad spots where nobody goes, so those traps are usually pointless, though there are some other weird things they do with this weapon, such as doing random art with this weapon during setup time, on a wall, such as smiley faces, letters, and whatever they can make within 30 seconds. Or they make certain kinds of things I can't really show, because if I did, this channel would be terminated almost immediately by YouTube. Or they're intentionally using this weapon to build overkill sticky traps. By using all 16 stickies they can place into one spot to build a giant nuke. And it's pretty cool to see the giant explosion itself that causes some frame drops if you get close enough. And it's pretty funny to see someone get blown up by a nuke basically, with all those stickies. But seriously, try to place these stickies somewhere as traps where they're actually going to be effective, where your enemy won't expect, instead of doing sticky spam. Some examples of where you can place your stickies, such as inside of medium health kits, the friendly who has their back against the wall and place it behind them, around corners, the top of doors, this mechanic sentry nest, this random rock on upward. The possibilities are endless if you get creative. Oh yeah, and sometimes on payload maps on defense, they'll switch to this weapon when the payload is almost about to reach the final point, such as 98% for example. They'll start spamming these stickies onto the card to prevent people from getting onto it. It's usually effective in discouraging people from getting onto the cart, unless an arsonist air blasts it off, or someone gets ubercharged and they don't die from the explosion. Then the rest of their teammates jump onto it. Though the sticky spam on this isn't really effective, since this weapon takes longer to reload and it's basically putting all your eggs, or stickies in this case, into one basket or payload. Or they'll try to spawn camp the other team if they get the chance. And the bigger clip size usually helps them. That's it really.
Fit & Co. Pictures presents a Michael Bay movie. Michael Bay! In a world where giant explosions happen for no reason,
Oh, a burger.
Michael One sticky launcher. On a mission to blow things up. Coming soon to theaters 3051.
Well, the only kinds of people who use this shield are pure Annihilator Knights, since this is the only shield that gives crits now, since the nerfs to Annihilator shields in general. Since the nerfs, barely anyone touches this shield, because most of them don't have prediction skills at all. So those crits are essentially worthless because they don't even have any turn control with this, and usually miss, or if they manage to predict correctly, the shield bash pushes them far away, so they lose that crit already. And there's no resistances with this shield as well, so they're easy to put down as well. This shield was never used before the nerfs and even after the nerfs, so it's basically worthless to almost everyone, since they're too lazy to put in the effort to learn prediction skills. I mean, the other situation where someone might be using this is pairing this with the shock and awe to just blow up random people with crits who are alone, or go for a group of enemy players to get a multi-kill. Though they usually aren't successful, or they're only doing this for the shock and terror achievement. I mean, I guess someone could be using this to relive the old days of getting crits from shields and doing a hybrid knight playstyle, but that's incredibly rare. Maybe you could use the 200% increase in charge knockback to push them off into cliffs and into environmental hazards, but that's hard to pull off and not really practical. It's not to say that this shield is dead or anything. It's just that nobody wants to put in the effort to use this shield, to say the least, and how it works in game. They are also very predictable and easy to sidestep into environmental kills or snipe in the head, with the battle axe to hopefully get back at someone getting a domination off them, or killing a person they find annoying. And if anyone remembers that old versus bosses bug that could give someone super speed with this shield, so it might make some older players remember the older days of TC2.
Take a seat, buddy.
Why not?
Hey, this'll do.
You will not take what is mine!
No,
What?
too late.
Charge!
Come on now.
Well, damn.
Well, this is another stock weapon, so it's either the clueless new player who just joined, or it's the experienced player who knows this is the only melee weapon for Annihilator that isn't a direct downgrade in almost every situation, and is the most consistent weapon for this melee slot, especially if you're using this with the stock sticky bomb launcher and the grenade launcher, since this weapon doesn't suffer from slower firing speed like the Black Death, slower deploy speed such as the battle axe, or only a one-time use with the recharge meter like the shock and awe. Sadly, this melee is overshadowed by some of those weapons I mentioned before, though there are some situations where an Annihilator forgets he has this melee weapon available to him, so whenever he gets into melee range by an enemy, they might forget to pull out their melee or forget they have one entirely and blow themselves up from their own grenades, either killing both of them or blowing himself up, with the other person surviving and wondering what just happened. I mean, some other melees might be better in certain situations, but this is the one melee that is most consistent for basically anything. You can see more obvious stereotypes for different melee weapons. Well, I mean, nobody really uses this on Annihilator except for a few situations. Well, you have the person still trying to help their team cap or push the cart faster with this melee, someone trying to speedrun maps but flanker is taken up so they use this as well. Sometimes they pair this with the sticky jumper and or Galway Greaves to get around faster, to cap easier and be immune to air blast while not taking as much fall damage whenever they start capping a point as well. So basically the same things as troopers. Though there are some rare chances that someone pairs this with the Bloody Bracer to cancel out the bullet vulnerability as a Hybrid Knight or pure Annihilator Knight, which those people say it's a direct upgrade for Annihilator in hybrid form in general, but that's up for debate. For those Hybrid Knights, they basically have a 5% resistance to bullets and a 2 times cap speed, so they're willing to give up their sticky bomb launcher while still having their grenade launcher to help clear people out and to help their team cap faster as well, which is pretty respectable. And for Annihilator Knights who use this with the Bloody Bracer, are pretty easy to kill and are pretty aggressive, so use anything that isn't bullets and stay out of their melee range, so they should be free pickings. Though using this on payload maps with the Bloody Bracer isn't half bad as long as you actually push the cart instead of going off on your own to get kills. But nobody does this to begin with, so if you see someone doing this intentionally, at least thank them a bit for them actually trying to complete the objective. You already know why some people would be using this weapon, but I'll explain anyway. First, you have the guy who prefers playing more aggressive, and wants more melee damage compared to the average Annihilator, so he uses this weapon. Or they're just sick and tired of everyone's bullcrap with people getting in his face and killing him easily, so he equips this to have a slightly better chance at whoever is killing him at close range. Since this weapon already has an extended melee range and 20% more damage, this usually works in their favor. This usually works in killing flankers most of the time, since those guys are annoying to deal with as an Annihilator. But 95% of them are pretty stupid and usually get up into this guy's face, and once they get hit by this weapon, they're pretty much dead. If he lands a pipe on them or gets another hit in, if they try to run away though. Though the 10% slower move speed when it's equipped may screw them over in certain situations. And maybe brutes too, since most casual brutes have reaction times about as fast as a revved up brass biker brute trying to move. Though trying to kill them with stock melee is pretty much suicide, so they use this instead to have better odds of not getting shredded to pieces if they turn around. Sometimes they equip this on Annihilator Knight with the Raging Bull, and maybe the Tide Turner as well, to go around either just dying really easily, since the person they tried to kill sidestepped them and basically countered them, or they managed to kill 1 or 2 people at most before the rest of the enemy team puts them down if they're competent enough. Or they use this on Hybrid Knight with the Tide Turner or any other shield, since they don't like the slower move speed and still want to have some mobility to them, so they aren't screwed over by the 10% slower move speed downside when they pull this out. Maybe there's the clueless new player who uses this weapon since it has a 20% damage bonus, so they think it's the best weapon in the game, and when they walk up to people, they'll think this weapon will kill them instantly. But most competent players will just get out of their melee range and shoot them from a distance, so these guys can let you farm free funds off them. There's also the rare chance of someone doing the Sticky Jumper meme class with this weapon, pairing this with the Sticky Jumper and the Galway Greaves, or the Squire Boots using the Sticky Jumper to get behind enemy lines to terrorize the marksmen who aren't paying attention, or anyone else who isn't paying attention. They mainly go for light classes like agents, doctors, and flankers, and marksmen, since they're basically free food when you use this weapon on them and get the first hit in without them noticing, or these guys play competitively. Not much else really. Well, you will almost always see this on Annihilator Knight, and it's pretty meta for Annihilator Knight, though it's actually viable on Hybrid Knight as well, since the 20% slower reload speed is basically non-existent. So if you know how to play Annihilator Knight and can aim pipes as well, know how to trimp, you can become an incredibly mobile target who can also put out massive amounts of damage in almost any situation, making you terrifying to the other team without having to give up too much firepower, and still be able to defend yourself in melee battles compared to the Sticky Jumper. But anyways, the pure Annihilator Knights who you see this with are very aggressive compared to other forms of Annihilator Knight using different melees, and will charge at basically the first person they see, even if they know it's basically suicide to melee someone like a revved up brute, which is pretty funny, but it's the main reason which gets them killed pretty much all the time, unless it's a light class like flankers, doctors, and marksmen. You should always expect these guys to have their charge ready at basically any time, since they can pretty much get free charge from pretty much everywhere, including ammo packs, and if you don't, expect to die from them a lot, especially if you don't have good aim or are a light class with low health. Sometimes you can see these guys get massive chain kills with this melee as an Annihilator Knight or Hybrid Knight, since hitting someone with this melee gives you 20% of your charge back. And killing someone drops a medium ammo kit, which makes it a hotspot for them to basically get almost infinite charge during those chain kills. Pretty similar to the katana, except gaining charge instead of healing. You can see them charging almost all the time, and some more experienced players who use this have memorized every single ammo pack on every map to extend the distances of their charges by a massive amount, so they can pop out of nowhere and come flying around corners. So just hope you can aim correctly, unless you want to get your head sliced off and turned into free charge for them. Though for Hybrid Knights, they can pretty much have insane amounts of mobility to themselves, but they tend to use their grenade launcher most of the time to soften up people, then charge in to get kills outside of their range. And since the reload speed is basically non-existent, they can get ammo and free charge from doing things an Annihilator should be doing. So just watch out for these kinds of Hybrid Knights, especially if they're competent. Or sometimes you can see them equipping the Squire helmet to fit the role as an actual knight, or they want to feel like one of those people from the 300 movie. Nothing else really. There are a few stereotypes for this weapon, so let me explain. So first, you've got the Annihilator Knight who uses this, since every other melee weapon for Annihilator Knight has some kind of stat that screws them over in certain situations, and they prefer having consistency instead. Maybe the Clueless player, who thought this was stock but better, since it has increased range, but it suffers from slower deploy and holster speeds, so they're basically free food in melee combat, since it takes them a long time for them to pull this weapon out. I guess they could also hate face stab agents, since trying to melee a trick stab agent is gonna get you killed easily, and they would rather try to take them on from a distance, though the agent could easily shoot them, so that's a risky idea to use on them, or any other class really. There could be the chance where they pair this with the Golf Champ cosmetic with this weapon, as an Annihilator Knight meme class, with them pretending to play golf, even though they're just slicing people's heads off. Or there's the slight chance of someone using this as a combo weapon whenever they land a pipe on someone and they start flying towards them. So they pull this out to have extra melee range, so they can secure kills that would have been outside their melee range if they used stock instead. And if anyone remembered that when this weapon was first released, it was actually a stock reskin with longer melee range without any downsides. So it was meta and a direct upgrade at the time, though that's not the case anymore sadly. You know where I'm going with this weapon. I don't even need to say anything, but sure. Roll the music.
Crawling in my skin. I don't want to get copyrighted.
Well, this weapon got nerfed into the ground, so nobody really uses this weapon anymore. But there are still a few stereotypes, so wait a minute, I'll explain them. First, you have the Clueless player who saw this weapon in the shop and thought it looked and sounded cool. Because who wouldn't want a giant sword that looks like this and is called the Black Death, and thinking it's the best melee weapon in the game on its own, even though it's actually the worst Annihilator melee for almost every situation possible, turning yourself into free points to farm off of, if you do decide to use it. Most of these Clueless guys don't even realize it takes away 25 health, and makes you move 10% slower, and it has a 20% slower firing speed, so you die really easily in most situations. Secondly, you've got the Annihilator Knight trying to use this like its old version without the nerfs, and basically also being free points, because of this rework severely making it less effective. They usually pair this with the Raging Bull to get free crits, which they either miss someone completely and die, or they manage to get that Clueless player who isn't paying attention and die anyways. Once the enemy team notices someone got their head sliced off by an Irishman with a giant sword, they only manage to get one kill before they die, because of them not having any more charge when they successfully kill someone and being slower than almost every class in the game. So they're usually free food, especially if they're near groups of enemy players. Maybe it's that one player who wants to have some good memories about how good this melee was for Annihilator Knight back in the day before it got nerfed, and want to have one more good memory about it until they put it away forever. There's also a small chance these guys are Hybrid Knights, who use this as a combo weapon, and they mainly use their grenade launcher to soften up enemies before charging in with the shield to get souls, though they're still easy to kill, unless you can surgically attach a crits doctor onto them, or have extremely low level players on the other team who have no idea what game they're playing, it's decent to say the least. But you lose so much effort for such little reward. Overall, this weapon is pretty dead from these giant reworks. So let's give a moment of silence for this once amazing weapon, now being added into the graveyard of dead weapons. Well, you know where this is going. But seriously, this melee used to be the champion of sweeping entire teams back in the day, as an Annihilator Knight before it got reworked. And the people who used that meta Annihilator Knight playstyle knew how broken that playstyle was and abused it to the point where Rolf had to rework this entire weapon multiple times over the past year to make sure it wasn't stupid OP anymore. Screw those guys. But either way, there's a wide variety for why people use this. So give me a moment to explain. I'll go through everything. So you have the clueless player who uses this thinking it's also a really good weapon because it gives half your health back on kill, and will try to use it at every chance even if it gets them killed, making them easy funds to farm off of. And with the 25% vulnerability when you equip it, and losing 25% health if it doesn't get a kill, is just rubbing salt in the wound. Then you have the person who uses this as a combo weapon whenever they land 1 or 2 pipes on someone, then pull this out to get their health back, though it usually doesn't work, but there are some exceptions as either a stock Annihilator or Hybrid Knight. Sometimes it's that one person who wants to counter that Annihilator Knight or Trooper who's killing them constantly or slaughtering their entire team. Or it's that one guy going for a Samurai loadout with the Katana and the Blind Warrior hat. Or they're an Annihilator Knight insisting that the Katana is still OP. Or they're trying to relive the days of how stupidly OP it was. Though you could still pull it off though, but it's much harder to do. Most of them tend to die super easy and manage to kill only one person. Almost always clueless flankers first, or any light classes, and nobody else. Or they managed to get really lucky and managed to sweep an entire team that was either clueless, or they didn't react fast enough, or aren't competent enough to stop the kill streaks. Just putting 2 to 3 shotgun shells in them is enough to stop them, even with them having overheal and having decent aim. Maybe they're going for the Bloodlust, or Showdown Town achievement, but that's not too common to see. Well, not many people use this weapon, but it's mainly used by Hybrid Knights, and rarely Annihilator Knights, if you see someone using this. It's either the clueless new player who saw this gives you more charge time, and thinks it's the best weapon for Annihilator, though it takes away 15 health, making you much more easier to kill, especially if someone gets in your face and is competent, or they forget to equip a shield, so they basically have a direct downgrade since it's taking away 15 health but still want more melee range. Or just use the golf club if you want extended melee range without downsides. Then we have the Hybrid Knight who uses this because they are also pretty aggressive but not as much compared to the ones who use the Battle Axe or the Charge and Charge. They either need to use this to get kills outside of normal shield charging distances and or outside their grenade launcher range to either get closer or put themselves in a better spot. Sometimes they use this as a mobility tool, pairing this with the Tide Turner or Gladiator Shield to get around the map faster, charging almost all the time and sometimes using this to escape bad situations, though make sure they don't see you if they decide to charge you. You're not getting away from them since the extended charge can cover insane amounts of distance in such a short time, catching most people off guard. Sometimes these guys realize that they can get some extra mobility at the cost of some health to get some kills they wouldn't have been able to get without using this melee's extended charge distance, which makes them unpredictable to say the least. So if you see someone pull this out, they know you're going to be nothing but free charge for them, then just charge away. Or these guys are also trying to be a discount solar light with the extended charge to either cover a lot more distance when they are and aren't trimping, or they're using it as a crutch since they normally can't pull off trimps without the extended charge. And for Annihilator Knights, they are usually pretty easy to kill. They are very aggressive compared to their hybrid counterparts. As long as you don't stand out in the open and be aware of your surroundings and have good aim, you should be fine. Market Gardener, but for Annihilator. Well, there's probably an obvious joke I can make about this weapon, but let's not go there. But either way, this weapon has a lot of stereotypes, so let me be thorough. Firstly, you have the person who uses this as a mobility tool, since you can blast jump super far if you slam this weapon on the ground while crouching, since they don't prefer using shields and want to keep their grenade launcher and normal sticky bomb launcher for as much DPS as possible. Secondly, you have the person who's just memeing, doing the shock and awe meme strat with the sticky jumper and parabomber, or maybe the Galway Greaves, but that's just rare. But moving on, they just go around flying in the air really fast to find someone who isn't paying attention, to just blow them up when they hit them. But it's easy to kill them, so you can farm funds and dominations off of them as long as you pay attention to your surroundings, and don't get spotted by them until they land on the ground, and surprise attack them. But this weapon can do 90 damage on its own on the first hit, so don't get into their melee range if one of those guys land near you. Thirdly, you've got the person who uses this as a combo weapon, who uses it to finish off an enemy if they somehow manage to tank 4 pipes and use this to finish them off permanently. Or the other situation where they manage to only land 1 or 2 of their pipes on someone and only use this since they tried to use this with stock and they would have died, because this weapon does 90 damage compared to stock's 65 damage. Maybe some people would call it a crutch in only that situation, but that's up for debate. Or as I mentioned before, they're doing the same strategy as the sticky jumper, where they use this to escape a bad situation that they can't handle, and they're willing to give up their melee weapon to have an escape plan ready, while not needing to give up their grenade launcher or sticky launcher weapons, even though this weapon could be a direct upgrade according to some people, if this strategy is used correctly. Or they're pairing this weapon with the sticky jumper to try to take advantage of those free mini crits while blast jumping, so they can pop out of nowhere and just surprise attack you. But those are the only competent Annihilators, even though most Annihilators are mediocre at best. When they try to use this and do that exact same strategy, they're pretty much easy to bait them into sentry guns if you know how to move well. So if you see someone attempting to garden you with this weapon, and there's a friendly sentry nearby, get near it, since they usually hard commit once they sticky jump and pull this weapon out, and it's almost impossible for them to get their grenade launcher out once they get caught into the sentry gun's line of fire, or use any weapons that give knockback to stop them in their tracks, push them off into cliffs, or push them into environmental kills, using such weapons as the loose cannon, Lupar DB, and the Sandman. It's pretty funny to see them attempting to garden you with this, either just to sidestep them, and them either getting killed almost immediately when they miss, or they fall off the map or into environmental kills. Just don't get into their melee range and avoid their pipes. You can thank me later. Or they're trying to do the Shock and Terror achievement, either doing the sticky jumper method, or more commonly the Shock and Awe Knight method paired with the Raging Bolt to get crits, to blow people up bunched up together. It's pretty hard for them to get more than 2 people killed with this method, since any competent players or a revved up brute can almost stop them, or kill them before they can even reach, or just surprise attack them, or have more than 200 health, and you should be fine, as long as they don't get a crit on you. More than 95% of people give up after a single round if there's actual competent players, or it's those meme lords doing the Shock and Awe Knight loadout, just blowing up whoever is unlucky enough to get noticed and just get blown up out of nowhere. They're usually able to get clueless flankers who aren't paying attention, or anyone really though. Also mentioning, they can get baited into sentry guns really easily since they have no control turning as well, and they usually hard commit. That's it as well.
But I'm gonna be butt ass naked so the wind could just be hitting my balls and shit. Hey bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Well, this is just a reskin of the golf club, so the same stereotypes I mentioned in the golf club section apply here, including the pirate stereotype in the loose cannon section, but there are some extra stereotypes here, so give me a second to explain. Well, if you got the guy who's trying to show this off to the rest of the server, since this was a limited reskin from the pirate event during summer, and you can't get it anymore, though nobody cares about it. The guy doing the pirate loadout with the loose cannon, tide turner, and this weapon, with the pirate hat sharing the same pirate stereotype as the loose cannon. Some of these guys spent hours grinding on boss servers to get this melee hat, though it really changes nothing and they usually forget about these 2 items after a day or 2 once they earn it. These guys also sometimes use Annihilator Knight as well with these weapons, with the pirate loadout, but that's somewhat rare, nothing else really. Alright, time to cover flanker weapons again. Stock, but cooler. Well, since Rolf couldn't figure out what the hell to do with this weapon, so they just made it a stock reskin and took it off sale and called it a day, which is pretty hilarious. But anyways, if you see someone with this, expect them to have some experience with flanker on their own. Sometimes tryhards use this to make them think they are automatically better than everyone else but still be really easy to kill. or they're trying to look like the Total Anarchy flanker in the update section, or these guys prefer this cooler looking laser reskin than the boring normal stock lever shotgun. Unless your graphics are lower than 3, the evaporation kill effect that this weapon has might block your vision and get you killed sometimes. Most people would consider this to be a war pig, but if you don't know what that means, it's basically someone thinking they're better than they actually are. Which is pretty true since these guys tend to overextend and get themselves killed often. Discount Mac 10 for flanker and mechanic. Concealed carry but no healing.
Well, this is pretty meta for most flankers. They usually spam it whenever people get near them or they're still trying to destroy sentry guns from far range even though the spread this weapon has is pretty big. They usually prefer playing more aggressively with this secondary weapon compared to the people who use the stock pistol, though the amount of spread this pistol gives can get them killed at some occasions. They either like the faster firing rate to spam it whenever someone gets close to them, or they prefer the bigger clip size since they might miss most of their shots as well. There really isn't anything else with this weapon.
Rap assassin, but friendly. Nobody uses this. Like, what could I possibly add on to this weapon? There's probably only 3 people who use this at all, who claim this weapon is good, even though this thing doesn't even do anything like 90% of the time. They either hate marksmans or brutes mainly, or they're only using it to hopefully blind the one guy dominating them to get revenge on them, even though they don't use it properly for the blind effect to even work. Hell, most of them try to charge towards them, either missing the snowball or hitting it, but it does nothing since you need to be 6 studs away for the blind effect to work. It's practically a direct downgrade 99% of the time, especially if you miss the snowball and its melee damage is 12 hit points. So good luck trying to melee fight someone with this. So if you see someone using this, they're either hell-bent on getting revenge on that one player who keeps dominating them, they want to see how bad this weapon really is, or they need the blind effect to kill people since they can't aim. I mean, some people use it on the friendly pigeon flanker set. You know which one I'm talking about, them using any shotgun with the milk. And this melee, doing basically the same things as pigeons do, but replace the milk and snow with you know what. But anyways, I get it. Blinding effects are annoying, and if it was able to blind regardless of distance, this would probably be extremely meta and an obvious crutch with it being broken. But this weapon sounds great on paper, but it's terrible in actual practice though, since most flankers tend to charge towards people mindlessly. And let's be honest here, 87% of flankers can't even aim projectiles. But moving on, it could either be the extremely rare situation where they're trying to get funny stick kills with this weapon, sort of in the same irony as the fish weapon, but not as obvious or well known. Since beating someone to death with a small stick is pretty funny if you think about it. Not much else really for me to talk about. Alright, moving on to trooper weapons. Well, this is pretty meta for higher level players who play super aggressive most of the time, who pair it with the buff banner. These kinds of guys are dangerous since they always seem to have their mini crits ready at any time. Also mentioning these guys can almost one-shot light classes if they get close enough. And sometimes these guys have a pocket doctor on them, usually with the crits Krieg on. So it's just crits being stacked on top of crits, so just be careful once they start charging in with mini crits, since they can usually do team sweeps without breaking a sweat. Or you see the low level people trying to do the same thing but failing horribly. That's it really. Well, this weapon is still used, but it's pretty rare to see. It is mainly seen with them either being a troller who uses this as a finisher after landing a garden, or as a crutch when they miss a garden but still want to have a backup weapon with them, and still defend themselves in close range. Sometimes these guys use this as a combo weapon with their choice of rocket launcher to pop someone in the air, then finish them off with this weapon, using it as a discount reserve shooter. Though they don't want to be super vulnerable during the weapon switching when they kill someone and have no ammo in their shotgun if they use the reserve shooter or any other shotgun while killing someone with this. But with this weapon, it reloads your clip entirely if you get a kill with it so they can defend themselves. You can still go on massive kill streaks with this weapon, but it's not as overpowered as its old version that most people know of. But still, it's really powerful if you can land all your shots. Thankfully, Valve reworked this weapon to not be complete crap anymore like its last version. So be happy about that. That's it really. Well, nothing really changed for this weapon since this is still the Panic Attack, but renamed to the Frankenstein with a different model. That's it really. You also might see this weapon on troopers who refuse to use the shotgun or the Mantrid seriously, and use this to be a complete memer who doesn't take the game seriously. either dying easily or getting lots of kills, though they're still playing a meme class. Just a quick stereotype here.
Everybody up, we're going on vacation. Car leaves at 6 a.m. sharp. Ow, you blow that f***ing horn again, I swear to God, I will ram that thing up your damn ass!
Well, this weapon was reworked, so this weapon's combo arsonist meta isn't completely dead like its former self, but not a lot of arsonists use this combo set anymore, which is pretty surprising since it was extremely meta back then, but now most people have ditched it for other arsonist combo loadouts. You can see these guys either wanting to relive the moment this was really good on arsonist from back in the day before going back to their normal loadout, maybe the guy who wants to see how its newer version stacks up against the older version before switching it off like the last person after a single death. Sometimes there's the rare chance of someone using it, either being really good with it or missing all their shots and being mediocre and easy to kill, though it's a mixed bag. I mean, most people usually don't use this for arsonist, or the guy who's using it with the degreaser, either tryharding, also being easy to kill, or somewhat doing decent with it. It's up for debate on this shotgun if it's actually good or not, depending on who you ask. Sometimes these guys can also go on massive kill streaks with this, but that's super rare to see on arsonist most of the time. Maybe they like the 20% more accuracy stat on this, and or the faster 50% faster switch and deploy speed. Nothing else really. Well, that's it. All of Annihilator's weapon stereotypes covered, including past classes, adding on extra jokes, or adding on small stereotypes I forgot to add on. As you can see, this video is an hour long, so this definitely took a while to make with all the gags in this video, and the amount of stereotypes Annihilator had to his weapons. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm always trying to put a lot more high effort jokes and bonus details into this video, and I hope you guys can see how much I try to improve these videos every time. Anyways, thanks to everyone who helped make this video possible. Especially Lazy for animating the intro of this video and creating the thumbnails for these videos as well. His channel link is down below, so please go check him out. He makes very high quality animations I know you guys would enjoy watching, so please give him a lot of support. It would really mean a lot to me and him. And I'd also like to thank Sand Undertable for voicing over and providing the footage for the Celtic Clusterer, Bread for voicing over the Gunboats, Lux for voicing over the Conventional, and Candice123, Canobeanz, Lollipop7001, and Clem for helping me make the Irish Guard gag. Everyone's respected channel links and names are in the description down below, so please go check them out and say thanks to them for helping me make this video possible whenever you get the chance. Without them, this video wouldn't have been possible, especially with some of the weapon gags you guys saw. Oh, and one more thing, make sure to subscribe and leave your comments down below. I love reading the comments you guys post and seeing your support for these videos. It shows that you guys want to see more of these videos, which helps them get made. Anyways, I won't try to drag this out anymore, so I'll see you guys later in the next video.
Your tears are what I live for, lass. Learn to fight, you vest-wearing, bow-tie-having, long-hair-brushing traitor! Ow! Go ahead and cry. Come on, go ahead.
Irish Spring will get you fresh and clean as a whistle. See?
Ah! You cut me! Why? What is that possibly supposed to show the consumer?
There's more soap inside the soap.
They know that!